What's happening, good people? Welcome to the channel. I'm Wes, aka Mr. Budget Watch, and today we are going to be reviewing this Tissot PRX quartz. Now this was kindly sent out to the channel by the Watch Shop. If you've never heard of the Watch Shop, they are an online retailer in the UK that sell loads of different watches. They have Japanese, Swiss, German, all the big names from those countries, and they offer some great customer service as well as sales regularly, so you can actually get watches cheaper than they are from other places. They have a massive range of products, a great website that's really easy to use and navigate. They offer good warranties as well, so definitely check them out. Link will be in the description. So in my unboxing, I said that this has to go back. Well, that has since changed, which is why you've seen the paid promotion. I actually messaged them the unboxing video to show them that it was completed, and they actually decided that I was able to keep this watch. I was not expecting that, and of course guys, you know that doesn't change my opinion, because there are a few things I actually don't like about this watch, which I'm going to share about during the duration of the review. So as always, we're going to start off with the sizes, specifications, and then talk about those little things I'm not so keen on, as well as the good sides, the positives as well. So this one measures in at 40.1 millimeters diameter. That goes up to 42.9 millimeters, including the crown. It's 10.7 millimeters thick. It has a very awkward 12mm lug width. From here to here, it's actually 29.5 millimeter. It has a 43.7 lug to lug, but it actually goes up to 51.3, including those end links. 114 gram sized up for me. 316L stainless steel throughout, a sapphire crystal, 100 meters of water resistance, a screw-on case back, not screw down, a push-pull crown, and you get a 2-year warranty as standard. So now we've got all that out of the way, let's talk, well, watch. And we're going to start off with the bezel as we usually do in our reviews. So you can see the bezel is high polished and does have a very nice slope down to the top of the case. All high polish finish, and the high polish is very, very good quality, really well executed. I actually don't mind the high polish too much on this occasion, because it's not overabundant. There isn't too much of it, and I think it creates a nice contrast against the brushing on the top of this tonneau style case. Definitely very 70s, and it's actually funny thing I should mention that this is a watch based on a release from Tissot from the 70s. So I think all that they've changed, they've tweaked a few little things, modernized a few things. I know the branding and text has changed, but a lot of it has the same sort of character as that watch from the 70s. So if you really like that sort of era for watch design, this is going to be right up your alley. So moving in, you can see we have a brushed rehaut, and then a very nice, cleanly and well done printed white minute track, which contrasts lovely against that blue dial. The indices are a very slender applied one, which are partially polished and partially lume filled. At the 12, you can see we have a double. Everywhere else is a single, and a truncated one to make way for that date window at the 3 o'clock. That is my first issue with this watch, the date window. I think it just throws off the balance a little bit of this watch. I wish they'd have put it down at the 6 o'clock just to give it a little bit more, symmetry. But if I'm being completely honest, I'd have rather seen it without. Now I know the original had it, so this one's got it. If it was colour matched, I don't think I would mind as much. So looking at the printing on the dial, you can see Tissot 1853 under the 12, really cleanly done. PRX quite near the pinion in the center, and then Swiss made right down at the bottom. The dial is a blue sunburst, and it is a very strong, prominent blue. I love the shade of blue that they've used as well. It's very, very nice colour. It shifts between a paler blue and a dark blue, and it's such a nice class 8 looking colour. To the handset, very, very slender. They're not sort of fence post style. They are, but they've not got the point at the end, so they're more like a flatter fence post. So they are ever so slightly chamfered. and all high polish, so they do play with that light really nicely. The second hand is just a very slender needle style. So all in all for the dial, it's very well executed, just a few little things that I would have done differently. So looking at the case profile, you can see we have that really nice slope from the bezel down to the brushing, a very nicely sharp and crisp chamfered polished edge, and then some beautiful horizontal brushing, which is so smooth, uniform, and just well done. It's some of the best brushing I've ever seen, which is very nice. And you can also see the bottom edge of the case as well, which, you know, just creates a nice layered effect and just gives the side a little bit of character. To this side, you can see we have the same profile but a crown. So this is just a push pull, and it has the embossed T logo, which is high polish. You can also see the lugs do have a slight downturn, but the case is mostly flat. So spinning around to the case back, there's not a deal happening here. We have a radial brushed finish with all the specifications around the perimeter. I wish they'd have done something a little bit different here. Do you know, with this being a reissue, I would have loved to have seen some sort of 70s throwback on the case back. Do you know, just to show something, you know, a little bit special, but they've decided to do it like that. I mean, it's perfectly functional and it works well, but it would be nice, you know, to see some sort of embellishment there, you know, just to give it a little bit extra. So now we're going to get on to the movement and how this watch works on a daily basis. So this watch is powered by the Eta F06.115. That movement was released in 2019, and it's part of their sort of entry level range. So it is a 3 jewel quartz. It's got a 5 to 7 year battery life depending on the battery you put in it. Speaking of the battery, it uses a Renetta 371, which is actually an SR920SW. So if you can't get a Renetta battery, which I believe is Swiss, then that other one will fit. Also for battery life, depending on the size of the battery, that will change the battery life, you know, accordingly. The bigger the battery, the longer it should last. It's also got some other handy features which I'll mention in a second. Accuracy is negative to plus 10 seconds per month, so that is fantastic. It also has something called an EOL, which is an end of life feature. So when the watch is running really low and it needs a replacement battery, that second hand will tick 4 instead of 1, just as a warning. It also has a feature called Eta Heavy Drive, which is essentially an anti-shock mechanism inside, just to help protect the quartz movement from any sort of shocks and stuff like that. I think that's really good, and it just means, you know, you can wear this watch a little bit more, you know, without having to worry about it as such. Now this movement is not perfect though, which brings me on to another issue with this watch. You can actually see the second hand ever so slightly misses its markers. It's not as bad as the Eta movement in my Hamilton, but it is quite noticeable. It's, you know, it's not hitting perfectly, and it just misses by a smidge on most of them. Is that a deal breaker? For me, it sort of does bug me quite a bit, but I wouldn't call it a deal breaker, but I understand that it might be for some. I know some of you guys really want it to hit bang on, and I think, you know, a Swiss should do that, but it is actually a known problem with this movement. Why it wasn't rectified before the movement was released, I don't know. I couldn't actually say. So how does this movement work? Well, it's very simple, just a 3-handed quartz. You know, one pull out, and you can adjust. Have I actually pulled it out enough? No, I have not. So that is the time. So 2 pulls out, and it is so smooth. It is probably the smoothest quartz I've ever used. The crown, I'll pop the measurements up on screen now so you can actually see how big it is. Even though the crown is quite small, it's easy to manipulate and use on a daily basis. So one push is obviously your date, and you can see it does have a quick set date feature. But the movement is definitely the best feeling quartz I've ever experienced. So it does have a lot going for it. It's really accurate, really easy to use, and you know, robust, but it just does have that little issue. So now we're going to move on to another little issue I'm having with this watch, and that is the bracelet. I mean, it does have a very, very beautiful taper lovely finishing which matches the finishing on the case, and we do have these little hidden details of high polish in between the links. So it's very, very nicely finished on the exterior, but we do have a couple of little issues. I've noticed on some of the links there are a few little sharp edges. I mean, it's not like cut your finger sharp, but they are a little bit rougher than in other places. So that's just one little issue I have noticed. I've also, you know, the 12mm lug width. Finding an aftermarket strap is nigh on impossible. I have actually seen a few, but they're £130. And I ain't paying £130 for no strap. But if you want to, they are actually available on Etsy. So if the bracelet, if you're not a fan of it and you want a leather strap, then you're going to be paying a pretty penny for one. I have actually had an idea on that, so keep you know, tuned for that. I'm actually going to try something. Whether it's going to work, I don't know. But anyway, back to the bracelet. Beautiful taper, beautiful finishing. You can see we have Tissot right at the bottom, and then we have another little issue I'm having. So this is the butterfly clasp, 2 pushes. All works absolutely fine, no issue with that. It's just a little bit boring, in my opinion. I think it could have done with some brushed elements, just to give it a bit nicer contrast. Yeah, we have this sort of different finish there, but there's too much high polish. I would have loved seeing, you know, these sort of pieces brushed, you know, just to match the bracelet and the case, and then had some more high polished elements around it, just, you know, to give it a bit more something about it, really. This side you can see we've got 1853, and another little issue I'm having with this is the lack of micro adjust. Obviously these types of clasps don't have macro adjust, so what Tissot have done to combat that is give us some small half links. Now unfortunately for me, that didn't really do anything, as you'll see when I actually pop this on wrist. So yeah, it's not perfect. One good thing I have noticed about this bracelet though is if you look on the inner side, you can see we have quick release. So they've put 2 little quick release tabs there. So if you pop open the bracelet, you can actually pop a link out to open it up and then easily remove the bracelet. Now why they put that on this watch kind of confuses me, seeing as there's no aftermarket stuff for it. So maybe it's for like maintenance and, you know, just to make it a little bit easier to get off, which I do appreciate. But I would also appreciate it if Tissot would actually release some straps for this. They can make them. It's not going to be, I mean, it's obviously more difficult to manufacture than a traditional, just because of the, you know, narrow and of course how it's all fitted and integrated. But they could actually make some straps for this, and I really would like to see some some Tissot made straps, and even some more aftermarket ones as well. Because as you'll see, I do have a little bit of another issue with this bracelet. So onto the wrist it goes. Right guys, so here it is on wrist, and you know what? It actually does wear better than what I thought. 40mm diameter, and it's like 43 point something lug to lug, but we do have those extra end links. Now actually those extra end links don't seem to cause as much of a problem as I thought they were going to. I thought they were going to really sort of stick out and be quite garish looking, but actually they flow quite well. When you see like a watch with a big male end link, like on an oyster bracelet, that causes it to stick out quite a fair bit. But this one, because it's sort of more, you know, shorter female style, it does actually flow quite well. And because the bracelet has got good articulation, which is, you know, quite hard to do on a bracelet like this, it does flow much better. The last bracelet I had like this, it was really rigid, and it didn't have much flex or give in it, whereas this one, you can just see it flows really nice. Now I have a proper awkward shaped wrist, but you can see it does flow really well around my wrist. Now we get to my problem. You can see it is too tight. Now I'd rather wear mine a little bit too tight than too loose. I did actually pop an extra link back into this. It was a little too loose for me. So yeah, all the half links included are actually installed, so this is about as best a fit as I'm going to get. I mean, I could pop a big link in and take, but I don't know if that would work. It might be something I could try if my plan for the thing I'm doing doesn't work out. But back to how it wears on wrist, and you know what? It is really comfortable. The profile, you can see, you know, I do get a little bit of a gap there, but I do have a really awkward shaped wrist. So sizing for this one, I'm thinking probably a 6.5 and above. would actually wear quite well, because even though it's 51.3 end link to end link, it doesn't actually look like that or wear like that, which is really peculiar. When I actually measured it at first, I thought, do you know what, this is not going to fit at all. It's going to be too big. But do you know what? I mean, looking at it now, even, you know, if I pull right away from the camera, it doesn't look too bad. You can just see a little bit of it like sticking up there. But it's really, really comfortable to wear. Even on, you know, even though it is quite tight, it is still a comfortable watch. Quite surprising, actually. Right, guys, so now we get on to the verdict. So this watch will set you back £295. That is quite a pretty penny for a quartz. Now, the quartz, like I mentioned already, is very good quality, but not perfect. The date window, a little bit of a bugbear for me. The slight finishing issues on the bracelet, the lack of any sort of a real adjustment on the bracelet as well. All things that do bother me some, but is it enough to say don't buy one of these? I'm going to say no. I mean, I think it's definitely still a good buy. I mean, £295 is pretty steep. But it is a good quality watch. The finishing is fantastic, apart from like those few little issues. You know, the crown and everything feels fantastic. The movement feels fantastic. Yes, it misses its markers a little bit. So that could be a deal breaker for some. For me, I can live with it because I'm used to it now because of the Hamilton. That misses it way worse than this one, and I've sort of grown to live with it. But yes, I mean, it's not the perfect watch. And actually, speaking of, they are actually supposed to be bringing a 35mm out of this as well. So if you are, you know, looking at one of these and you've got a slim wrist like myself and think this one wears a little bit too big, then that 35mm should definitely remedy that. But £295 for this, I think it's a fair price. Obviously, if you can find one cheaper, I mean, Watch Shop, like I said, have sales all the time, so you might actually be able to snag one and get a bit of money off it. And then I would say it's a definite, really, really good buy. But yeah, not perfect, but it is still a fantastic watch in my opinion. So yeah, that is my thoughts. Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any uploads. And of course, follow me on social media at Mr. Budget Watch. Thanks again. I'll see you soon.